And we are ready. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. I'm going to open us up in the Fatiha. I'll read the disclaimer and then begin the episode. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki Yawm ad-Din. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim ghayril maghdubi 'alaihim waladdallin. Amen. This is AM 360's disclaimer. The content of the American Muslim 360 Broadcasting Network is intended for general information and community service purposes only. Views expressed by the host or guests are their own and not necessarily the official position of AM 360 or the parent corporation Community-Wide Shura Conference, Inc., or CWSC, or its board of directors. Content is not designed to provide specific or personal medicinal, financial, legal. Can that be pushed up, Sister Martha?
Oh, yes, sir.
Counseling or other professional advice. No liability, explicit or implied, shall extend to hosts, AM 360 or CWSC. We encourage you to consult an advisor for your specific circumstances. So again, I want to greet everyone with the greetings of Assalamu alaikum. And also, I would like to really just welcome everyone back to the 9-Point Plan, a living document for thriving communities podcast. My name is Imam Mohammed, and today we will move into the next step of this community building journey that we all are part of. Our last episode covered how do we conduct a visioning session, and all of these components, right? These are pieces of a puzzle that we can use in various stages of our community development path or our community development journey. These are pieces of the puzzle that we can put together to be able to have a systematic, logical way or logical approach to community development. And last week we talked about how do we bring everyone together around developing a shared vision, right? And the way that was presented, and we're not in the stage of developing the vision yet, right? We were setting the tone around people's hopes and dreams and aspirations, their ideas of what our community should look like. And then potentially identifying those areas of concern that will hinder, right, our progress. So basically, what this first step is in helping us to begin to develop a vision for our community, it steps us through a process of conflict resolution without saying that's what we're doing. We identifying the hopes and dreams, and then we identifying how we are going to deal with any of the hindrances, right? Any of the hurdles that present themselves as we progress through each of the stages of community development. So that's what we talked about last week. It helps us to set priorities, gather wisdom, and it starts to set the foundation for our strategy. This week, today, inshallah, My goal is to discuss a method called a gap analysis. So a gap analysis actually is another process that you walk stepwise through, step by step, identifying um, uh, the expertise, knowledge base that is already existing in the community, because in that visioning session you already identified what you needed to realize the vision, right? Now you're moving it into the gap analysis stage, where you are now trying to identify where the experts are in the community and external to the community, and inviting all of those experts to the table to help you begin to dive deeper into a visioning session, so that you can walk out of now that process with a solid action plan that can be implemented. So today, inshallah, it is my goal to step us through how do we conduct a gap analysis, and um, what are some of the components that goes into a gap analysis. And this could be a very sensitive process. And I say sensitive because we have um, uh, we have to be inclusive of everyone's voice in this process. Our seniors, our pioneers, our young people, everyone at this point need to participate in this part of the discussion. So our intent here is to identify the current reality, right, of the community, and that kind of foundation of our vision. Do the two match up, right? Do we have the necessary components or the expertise within our communities currently to move the vision into action planning? And if we do not have that, now is the time that we start to look for the systems that are required, right? And the systems may be, do we need to shore up our policies within our community, our masjid? Do we need to strengthen our decision-making process, right? All of this should be surfacing now, right? These areas of improvement should be surfacing now. The current skills, right? Not we're just looking now at current condition of our community, and evaluating that against what we say we want to achieve, our dreams, our goals, our hopes, our aspirations, right? Do the two align? Resources we need to be identifying that, right? And the 9-point plan, right, plays a significant role in helping us develop the roadmap. But I want to hold off on that, because we want to identify these areas of improvement, our policies within our organization that needs to be strengthened, skill sets within our community we need to identify, and resources that we know we need to bring to this effort, so that we can actually implement what it is that we say that we want to do. So, what is a gap analysis? A gap analysis and why it matters. A gap analysis essentially answers three fundamental questions. One is, where are we now? And that's looking at the current strengths, weaknesses, assets, and needs of the community or the organization or the masjid, whomever you need to involve, entity or the ecosystem that you're looking at. You need to be asking this question: where are we now with our strengths, addressing our weaknesses, leveraging our assets, and then also identifying those needs that we have, and then backfilling those needs. The second question: where do we want to be? And basically, this question is trying to answer it. It really taps back into that visioning session we had before the gap analysis, right? That visioning session is going to now help feed into the gap analysis. That's why it was important to do the visioning session before the gap analysis, because at this, when we're asking the question, where do we want to be? We already needed to resolve where our shared values lie, our shared aspirations, and etc. Right? And then how do we deal with? How do we agree as a community or as an organization or as a masjid? How do we deal with the challenges of implementing our vision? Because in the visioning session, we have some agreed upon strategies in which we're going to deal with those challenges that were identified that potentially will hinder our progress. Right. So now we're moving into incorporating what came out of the visioning session now into the gap analysis. So it is important to step to walk through these different steps. And the third fundamental question is, what is the gap between the two, right? Between where are we now, right? And where do we want to be? That's why I opened this session by saying, identifying our strengths, our weaknesses, where our assets are, and where our needs are, because this is going to help bridge the gap between these fundamental questions. It's going to help us to process better. So these steps are critical because vision without analysis becomes wasteful thinking, right? We find ourselves spinning our wheels. You know, we have a lot of ideas and thoughts about how our community should progress. But we a lot of times we become frustrated with those processes and we drop off. There's a lot of conflict that naturally bubbles to the top, in discussions around these topics. One, because we haven't did the necessary analysis to be able to address those challenges before they start to rear their heads. Analysis without action becomes just, a paperwork. I see this happen a lot in communities where we go through the visioning session, we go through the analysis session, we develop an action plan for the community, but then that action plan sits on a shelf, right? So analysis without action is just paperwork. So we have to move beyond that. Our analysis should also identify specific individuals with, that's why we're identifying those individuals in our community with a certain skill set. These individuals are going to be given a task to either develop the action plan, implement the action plan, be able to see it all the way through. And this is not just another exercise where we talk, we do these sessions and nothing come about, right? That's what I mean about it becomes paper. It just becomes another document that we have developed and it goes nowhere. And that too frustrates people. So we have to be able, that's why the next section we go through, right? We're going to talk about, some subsequent sessions that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about SMART goals, right? And SMART objectives. So that we have specific, realistic, time-bound goals and objectives to what we are talking about, so that we can hold ourselves accountable, that the community can hold us accountable to what we said we're going to do, right? That's why SMART goals are very important, because they have to be realistic. Can we get this done with the resources that we have and the time that we have allotted to do it? And if the answer is no, then we go back to the drawing board and revisit the SMART goal and make sure it's something that we can realize. So our vision plus our analysis becomes our strategy. It becomes our strategy for developing our action plan that moves us into a systematic process to implement goals and actions and activities, right? Because what's associated with these SMART goals and objectives are activities that must be done in order for us to achieve those goals, right? And what's attached to these activities are definitely resources. So you need to identify those necessary resources that are required for you to do the activity or activities. And what's attached to these resources, right, are the short-term, mid-term, and long-term outcomes. So this process steps us through being able to have a vision, do an analysis of our current state and where we want to be and how we get there. And it also evaluates our current condition, our resources, what are our leveraging points. And then we set forward on small wins because those are our short-term goals. And our short-term goals should be something that we can achieve in a short period of time. And that's relative, right? But ideally, it should be anywhere between 3 months to a year. Should be short-term goals. And midterm goals is anywhere between 2 and 5 years. And long-term goals is longer than 5 years, right? These are your 15, 20, 25 year outcome that you want to achieve with a specific activity that is attached to a specific SMART goal or objective. So I want to go back and I want to talk about, I usually try to present this information in steps. So that is not, and I asked Sister Martha, was this overwhelming, to folks to talk about it in this way or to present it in this manner, in a step, kind of logical approach. And if anyone feel that the information that we're covering is a lot, please let us know. Provide us that feedback because we can break these episodes into, these episodes into several episodes if we need to. And we can go back and revisit topics if anything need to be clarified even more. We can definitely go back and touch on those topics again. And because we want people, the reason why we created this episode was to help our communities develop processes and procedures and a logical approach to community development. And again, that can be it's not going to look the same across communities. So when we are doing this gap analysis, our first step is to gather everything we discussed and we talked about from the visioning session. My recommendation would be to not quickly move into these different sessions, right? So if you have to spend a month on the visioning session, spend a month. Spend the amount of time that you need with the visioning session before you move into the gap analysis. Because if you move too quickly, you're going to lose people's, I wouldn't say attention, but you're going to lose sometimes you can lose their focus. You will also lose their trust in the process, right? So we have to be able to build trust in the process that we're laying out. And building that trust in the process that we're walking people through is we move at the speed of trust. So if people still questioning or have questions around the visioning process, we need to go back to the visioning, right? We don't leave them out, right? We want to make sure that everyone is aboard. Now, with that said, there should be some, time limit to that. We shouldn't spend a whole year on a visioning session, right? But if you need a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks on your visioning session, that's fine. To ensure that everyone has vested, that everyone is vested in the process. That's fine. So step one for the gap analysis is that you're going to gather everything that was talked about and discussed and finalized in that visioning session. Because everyone, this is your visioning session is your contract. I see it as your contract moving into the gap analysis. Everyone is in agreement that this is our foundation for our vision. Right. And now these are our agreed upon shared values. We're committed to this process. We're saying that when challenges present themselves, this is how we're going to address those challenges. And now we're moving into the gap analysis. So it is important that everyone, I wouldn't say everyone, but you have a good majority of the community buy in on the visioning. Because it's going to be important that you have that before moving into the gap analysis and the other steps that are going to be required for you to get to developing an action plan. Because you don't want to be dealing with conflict while you're developing the action plan. Really, the action plan is that's where the rubber meets the road. Is in the action plan. Because now you're laying out specific strategies on how you're going to implement to address the vision that is being set by the community. So you want to pull in your notes. You want to pull in if you generated any maps, right? We talked about that power mapping or the mapping of the community. Where are their leveraging points in the community? You want to, if there are maps that are developed, you want to pull those maps in. Yes, I see a question from someone on the phone ending with 7888.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
This is Bilal. I'm just coming in. This first time I was coming in on his meeting. So praise be to Allah. But what I did, there was a discussion with the Imam of Wali Ali, and it's something that we're supposed to have been meeting. He had a 5-point plan for establishing community life.
Yes, sir.
And we're supposed to have been meeting with him in New Medina, and I haven't found out from Sister Nala just what the income are. We still going to do that, and so he has something set up, and so I'm listening. Like I say, I'm just coming on, but I know that we just went through maybe like a 9-month or a year thing of planning with Sister Martha Nala Williams. And she took her through a whole lot of different things, and it was I would say it was more than successful. So we at that point with the action plan, but I called the number up, but he wasn't there. But I'm here listening because I didn't know about this program, so I just wanted to put that out there.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Brother Bilal, for joining us. Thank you, sir. And sharing that this process that Sister Martha is laying out for our community is actually being implemented, and it is working. So we wanted to showcase this and to the broader community and make this available to the broader community. And like I shared with Sister Martha, if anyone need additional assistance, please reach out to CWSC. They have a tremendous a set of individuals that are part of CWSC that are experienced in various areas of community development that she can also bring and walk alongside what she is doing to be able to complement what CWSC is providing to the community. So I would invite you all to, if you know of anyone that needs that type of assistance, please contact CWSC. They have a network of individuals that will be able to provide support. Okay, so we talked about step one, where we're pulling in all of the information that we gathered from the visioning session. Now, step two, this is that information is going to help shape the gap analysis. So in step two, you're going to define the desired future outcome or state or condition that you want to achieve. A lot of this would be asking questions of the participants or questions of the community. For example, for a priority that you have identified. Let's say it is expanding masjid services. It was an ideal or concept that came out of the visioning session. The prompt that you can ask in helping to define the future state of the masjid or the community or whatever effort it is, it could be, if this priority succeeds in the next 3 or 5 years, what does it look like, right? It's not enough to say we want to expand the masjid services, but what does that mean? What does it look like? For example, a fully functioning youth mentoring program, a community garden feeding families, a cooperative grocery store, a masjid-based counseling service. I mean, what specifically does it mean to expand the masjid services? That can take on different meanings to different people. So it is at this stage that you want to get very detailed with the prioritized I wouldn't even say that goals right now, but hopes and concerns. To prioritize hopes that came out of the visioning session. Now you want to put more detail, and you want to add some specific questions targeting those kind of priorities. Now, once you have these details to your priority, and you may have, and I caution people here. I caution people because we want sometimes we want to take on more than we have the capacity to address. Do what your capacity allows you to be able to achieve. If your capacity is only able to address 2 priorities, then address those 2 priorities. I advise people not to prioritize no more than 4 items, right? Not saying that the other, concerns that were identified are not equally important. They are equally important. But because of capacity and resources that are needed and dedicated to that, right? You want to identify the top ones, the top 4 that you can achieve in a timely manner, right? Because you want to have those quick successes. You want to have those quick short successes. You want to show wins, quick wins. So now, once you have put the detail around these desired priorities for your future condition, these now become, right? They now move from the future state now to your target condition. So now these are you can now see these as our target. These are the end goals, right? These are our end goals that we want to achieve. These desired targeted conditions or condition. That is step 2. And I'll be honest with you, it may take you more than 1 or 2 sessions to get to your targeted condition state. It may take more than so be flexible. Provide yourself some grace to be able to, right? We already said that we're moving at the speed of trust. The speed of trust. So allow yourself some space, allow yourself some grace to be able to systematically walk and identify these targeted conditions, which we just stepped through, right? We stepped and we identified the targeted condition. And that will happen in step 2. Step 3 is where we're going to assess the current state, right? Our current condition, right? We have identified our target goals. Now we're going to assess our current state to be able to implement or to reach that goal. Can we do it? And the question that we ask at step 3, the question that we ask is, what do we currently have? What do we currently have in our masjid, in our community? And we want to list out, and I just made some suggested a list of what can be looked at. And one is current programs, right? And I've used it, for example, I use the expansion of community services, right? So if a community is saying that is a top priority of theirs, is to expand the masjid services, and we have put some specific details to what that means. What does the expansion of the masjid services mean to our community, mean to our members? Now the next logical question would be, what do we currently have to expand that list of services that we want to see the masjid achieve? So we want to list out some bulleted areas. One would be to evaluate our current programs. Is what we're doing working? And if it's not, then what can we do different to make to have those communities work efficiently, effectively? Because if our current programs are not working at the desired level that we need them to work, why would we even consider expanding? If we're not getting our current services or programs to the desired level that we want. So we need to evaluate before we even talk about expansion of the masjid services. We need to evaluate our current programs and services, and are we doing a good job? With our current condition. Do evaluation of the current staff or volunteers, right? Are they effective? Are they bringing the necessary skill sets to the table to be able to expand these services? Or do we need to look for outside assistance? Which is fine. I'm all about collaboration and partnership. But we do need to evaluate our current staffing and volunteers to see if that level of expertise is existing within the community, existing within the masjid, before we go outside to look for assistance or help. We need to, within our staff, right, our current staff and current volunteers, we need to do a skills assessment, right? And there's different ways in which you can get at to evaluate people's skills, the skills that they bring to the table. You can do that through a questionnaire. You can do that through a conversation, etc. But this is important. This is really, to me, this is the most important part, is being able to evaluate the skill sets of the people that will be working on this, that will be working on these priorities. because you don't want to get to trying to implement your action plan and you realize that the person that is in charge of a specific activity do not have the skill sets to be able to even advance that activity. And if that's the case and that person is passionate about that topic, there's workarounds. There's trainings. There's other ways in which people can build their skill sets. But we need to know that up front so that we provide the necessary wiggle room within our action plan. Because if the person have some skill sets, but not really the skill sets that are needed, then we need to identify that in the action plan, right? And dedicate it the necessary resources in order for that training to happen. So that's why I say that is an important step to be able to analyze the skill sets. Analyzing our partners, right? Who are partners, who are allies, who are walking alongside this project, and being able to evaluate if they have bought in, right? If they are vested in this vision. The partners play a significant role in helping to realize the vision that the community or the masjid is developing. Evaluating current funding. We're not going to be able to do this with zakat. We're not going to be able to support this type of work that we're talking about here. Zakat is not going to support this. So we need to be thinking about other types of funding streams. And we need to be creative with our funding streams. Not heavily, and I really caution communities a lot around this as well. Not being heavily reliant on grants. Because granting entities priorities can shift. They can change. I think we all witnessed that at the federal level. The impact that federal priorities have had on organizations, communities, because they had other priorities for their policy, for their funding sources, etc. So there has to be other sustainable funding vehicles in which we should be looking at and also creating. And one of the podcast episodes that we discussed was becoming financially independent, where we buffer ourselves from those kind of shifting external priorities. So we need to, as masjids, we need to, as communities, develop income streams that are not dependent on grants. So it means that even as a function of nonprofit work, we need to be looking at how can we develop a stream of income that sustain and support our work outside of grants. And that, again, that's going to look different across communities. But that is an important analysis that needs to be done. Not only the question of what do we currently have when it comes to funding, but where do we want to be and how do we get there when it comes to funding? I'm gonna move on to step 4. So once we have done those, have had those conversations, and we have documented the outcomes that are coming out of these steps, we now move into identifying our gaps. And a gap is anything missing between the current state right? We just did that analysis of our current state. The gap is anything missing between the current state and our desired future state. And I'm staying with this first scenario that we presented about expanding the masjid services, right? I'm staying with that. So when we're identifying gaps, when we say that we want to expand the masjid services, and we're looking at our current state, the gap between what is missing between our current state and our desired future state, we should be looking at lack of organizational structure, right? And this is not necessarily saying that you don't have any structure, right? You need to always be evaluating your structure. Is it working in the current condition and challenges that the masjid is facing? Is it working? Or are we still relying on a structure that was 25, 30, 40, 50 years ago? Right? So we should always be evaluating between our current state and our desired state. So that means looking at our structure, our policies, our bylaws, how we make decisions. Looking at leadership. Not saying that leadership is not effective, right? But we should always be evaluating our leadership. That's why Imam Muhammad, may Allah be pleased with him, suggested that our communities have ratifications of our imams. That's the evaluation process, that the community supports the current imam through a ratification process. We should be looking at, right, we already hinted at this, our volunteers and staff that will be supporting the masjid. We should be looking at funds. We should be looking at the training that is required, right? We shouldn't just be picking people to serve on committees and boards just because they are there, that they're present in the masjid. We should be picking folks to serve on committees and serve on important roles in our community and in our masjid because they have the skill set. We run into a lot of challenges because we pick people because they're in our circle, because we like them, because they being around the masjid, because they pay zakat. These are the wrong reasons to pick people. We have a specific challenge in our community. We want to convene a group to address that challenge, and those folks that are on that particular board should be able and have the skill sets to come up with a strategy to address that concern, and then that strategy is presented to the community for the full community to provide their feedback. And if we, like I said before, if we find people have a passion about something, but don't have all the skill sets, then we help them through trainings or through other vehicles to be able to skill them up. There's a lot of resources out here when it comes to nonprofit development, when it comes to leadership development, when it comes to other types of skill sets that are going to be needed when we talk about community development. There's a lot of free resources out here. Even at your local level, you have leadership trainings that happen at your commerce departments. Right? There's all kind of ways in which you can tap into training. Our policies and procedures in our masjids. And then the number one, right? The number one is evaluating our communication strategy. How are we sharing what came out of the visioning session, what is coming out of the gap analysis, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? How are we serving? I mean, how are we sharing? How are we communicating this to the broader community? So in addition to the action plan, we need to have a communication strategy, communication plan, right? So that everyone is aware of what it is that the masjid is working towards. So we don't have, someone that is absent from participating in the process, right? Come a year later and say, "Oh, I didn't even know anything about this," right? So these are just some steps. And the last step that I want to talk about, because we are approaching 10 minutes away, and I do want to make space for questions. Step 5 is turning the gaps, right, that we have identified in step 4, turning these gaps now into strategic steps to be able to address the gaps. So each gap, right, once you identify a gap and you say that this is the difference between the current state that we are in and the future state that we want to become, this is the gap. Once you have identified that gap, it now becomes a task. Now you're starting to identify work. Well, in the field that I'm in, it's called work orders. Now you're identifying your task or the project that you will be working on, such as forming a specialized committee or an advisory board, or however you want to name it. Sitting down and writing a specific proposal around that task that has these SMART goals, that has these SMART objectives to them, where you're identifying the resources and the outcomes, short, mid, and long-term outcomes. So you're actually putting thoughts to paper now. You're looking at potential funding sources out there to help you to be able to realize and address this task. You're identifying and providing the necessary training for the folks that will be working on this task. You are partnering with local external partners if you see that as an area that you need to pursue. You're recruiting volunteers with specific asks of what you're asking them to do or what you're asking them for. And then you're developing a schedule, right? That's your time. That's your time-bound requirement of a SMART objective or goal, is that you're developing a schedule that you're going to be accountable for implementing. So now your vision now, right? We started with a vision session. We moved into the gap analysis. Now we're moving from a vision to now starting to think about the action plan. And next week, inshallah, the step between now the gap analysis and actually sitting down and writing the action plan is walking through a logic model. And next week, inshallah, I will discuss a logic model, as well as if I can weave in SWOT analysis, because SWOT analysis is another analysis that you can do that can really walk alongside a gap analysis. You can do a SWOT analysis, and basically you have done a SWOT analysis because you have looked at strengths, the weaknesses, and the SWOT analysis is only identifying your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. And basically, you have done that through different stages of visioning session, analysis session, and now we will go into the logic model. And then once we finish the logic model, then we will discuss all of the components or the elements that makes up an action plan that you need to think about when we talk about an action plan. Yes, Sister Martha.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
Let's see here. And very good example, Bilal mentioned he's on often. So when you mention about communication process, right there pointed to a weakness or an attention needed to be given to the communication process and build that, strengthen that. When you were speaking about actions or tasks, I had to think of going, when you get to skill sets and volunteers, individually, we have been asking everyone to do a strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats on self, so that we can evaluate self and get stronger in our skin and how we think about ourselves,
Yes, ma'am.
and then realize I I'm not strong in uh, being a what do you call it, treasurer,
Yes.
recording treasure,
Ma'am.
or doing the documents that need for the taxes. All right,
Yes,
and I
ma'am.
know that, but I love math and I love detailing stuff.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
me acknowledging that, I realize my shortcoming is in the actual edification process for the tax person. They can hear my emotions about it, but they want some documents that speak to what they need to prepare.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh, I think we may have lost Sister Martha. Okay, here she is.
Yes. Okay. I'm on the two phones there, but
Yes, ma'am.
being clear to self as to what we have, just like you went through for the organization. I'm finding that individuals, because we've been grouped so long in particular communities, from the masjid, from the community, the neighborhoods, we assume. And so I realized that that was a weakness. We were assuming our own personal endeavors and strengths, or what we wanted, but how to get there individually. So that's what CWSC has been working on, is asking everyone to do that self evaluation with their creator. They do that themselves with your immediate community, faith wise, the outer community, faith wise, and then on to the general community. And give ourselves that step by step process. Now we can turn back and I didn't know I'm sitting next to the sister who has a PhD in certain things,
That's right.
but because we've been just coming to the masjid and just speaking to one another, or hey, she's beautiful, or she's this, but we don't. So alhamdulillah, that
That's right.
that was one thing that we really realized.
Yes, ma'am. You hit the nail on the head to be able to do that skills assessment of our membership, right? That so we can be aware of what their passions are, where their skills lie, etc. Because we just don't do enough in our community at our masjids to be able to say with confidence that any individual is able to work on a specific task. And then what happens with that is that it causes conflict. Because a person who had who has been around the community for 50 years automatically self-appoints themselves as the expert when it comes to anything that happens in the masjid. And unfortunately, my experience have been in many of those cases, many of those individuals, they do more harm than help in our community because they just lack the knowledge base and lack the skill sets to be able to facilitate the process that is required of them. Not saying that those individuals cannot walk alongside, right? We should always present an opportunity for people to learn. But to lead that effort or to implement that effort, we need a specific set of skills. And if it's not existing in the masjid, do we need to identify someone in the masjid that is willing to receive training to get to that point, or do we move to an external partner that we can walk alongside until we build that muscle, right? In our community to be able to address that particular concern. And these are real conversations. These are sensitive topics. It leads to a lot of misunderstanding in our community, a lot of conflict, a lot of arguments. And I can tell you that is probably the number one challenge that our community has to overcome is people who self-appoint themselves as experts in whatever topic, and they're just not. There's just not. And we have to have honest conversations about, and the only way that we can do that is to be able to evaluate folks' skill sets. And we need to know, we have to agree as an organization or as a community or as a masthead in that visioning aspect that this is what we're looking for, right? We have already identified our gaps and what is needed to address those gaps. And if we continue, not addressing the gap, we're going to find ourselves not being able to move from our current state to what we're saying that we want to achieve as our future state. So, and and we just have to not feel personally attacked, because this is a community effort. We can't feel personally attacked if we're not a part of the and I can use this language, the level experts that are brought to the table to be able to devise the plan and then present that plan to the community for final approval. So are there, we got about 3 more minutes. Are there any other questions in regards to this topic? Yes, Sister Martha.
Yeah, yes. One other thing is, as we acquire, I know I've had conversation with others, as we acquire our uh, training, becoming, and with these titles, the bachelor's, the master's, the PhDs, how to turn that into a teacher, become the teacher training others within the fold or within
Yes.
the group, seeing that as an instrument to promote.
Yes. Martha, Sister Martha, you hit a nail on the head, but I do want to lift this up too in my response, that you don't necessarily have to have all types of alphabets behind your name to be considered a subject matter expert. Your level of lived experience and other types of training that is out there, right? There is training at the community level around leadership development, around strategic planning, around community development, if it's housing or whatever it is. There are all types of training that you can tap into. You don't necessarily need a bachelor's or some formal education to say you're a subject matter expert. So I want to clear that up, right? It is a level of experience, right, that you bring to only thing a degree does, one, it opens up doors, for one. Two, it just gives you theory, but you still have to apply the theory to real life experiences. You can have all types of degrees, but if you're not out practicing, your craft, you do not get better at it. So that's what I mean about lived experiences. And I don't want to discredit anyone that have lived experience, because your lived experiences is valuable. But what I see as hurdles to our community is individuals that we know they do not have the skill sets, right? And they self-appoint themselves. And we have seen them year after year, not delivering on what they have been tasked with. If they do deliver on what they're tasked with, it's haphazard, it's not fully well thought through, and it leads to a lot of challenges for the community. We see these individuals over and over and over again. That is who I am talking about. Those individuals that self-appoint themselves as being experts in certain areas and experts in everything, right? None of us are experts in everything. None of us are. We have to have folks that walk alongside of us. We build certain skill sets. I tell people I know enough about different subjects to be dangerous, but not to say that I am an expert in it. I will be able to point you to different resources, or point you to individuals that can take you further, right? But what I am good at, right, I excel well in it. and people recognize, right? When you we know, I don't have to, we know a subject matter expert when we run into them, when we talk with them, they naturally know the information, the knowledge base that is required, right? We just have to get down to who are those individuals in our community? How do we bring them forward? And Sister Martha, I love the idea about you sharing that the folks with the knowledge base, right, has a requirement, really a obligation to go back into our community, go back into our masjid, and train up other individuals that have that passion and want to learn. I agree with you 100% because that's how we build up that muscle within our masjid, is that the folks that do have the knowledge, being willing to share and train up other folks to be able to do that work. All right.
And needless to say, that's our succession plan.
Yes, ma'am. Succession planning is very important. That is the other aspect that I see not only harm our masjids, but harm community organizations all the time. An executive director will leave, and the organization is stuck because that executive director left with all of the experience, right? That was gained over the years. That's why it's so important that, and I stress this a lot to organizations, we must have in our succession planning, even if we don't have it written, it should become a practice of ours to have young people that is shadowing us and learning what it is that we're doing. And we should not, the older individuals or the individuals with the knowledge should not feel like we're going to be replaced because we have someone wanting to understand how we got to where we are, right? We should be willing. It is really, to me, it's really an obligation for us to reach back and pour into others skill sets that we have gained because somebody poured into us. They poured into us. When I became an executive director for a nonprofit, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just thrown into this thing, asked to serve in that capacity. I didn't know what I was doing. I had two individuals that reached out to me, a gentleman from a local foundation and a young lady that was running a CDFI, a community development financial institution. Both of them reached out to me and they said, Omar, we see that you have the passion here, but we want to take you out. We want to take you under our wing. I want to meet with you. The gentleman said, I want to meet with you every bi-monthly. And the young lady said, I want to take you out to lunch monthly. And these were, they were in this field for years, these two individuals. And they mentored me. They gave me the confidence, right? In realizing that I was going to make mistakes and I could not beat myself up over those mistakes I made, but to learn from them and just put better policies and procedures and processes in place to avoid those mistakes again, right? They walked me through the frustrations of being an executive director of a nonprofit, right? The pitfalls that you're gonna that is going to present themselves and how to avoid those pitfalls, right? So having those two individuals in the very early stages of me being an executive director of a nonprofit was extremely helpful for me. And to this day, anytime I see those individuals, I always thank them for pouring into me and helping me to become what I am today. Without those two individuals and many more, I would not be who I am today, and being able to pour into communities, pour into other individuals what they did for me. I am forever, grateful to those two individuals for their outreach to me when I was so green, so green. So I just want to say that we need to set up those kind of networks as well, Sister Martha, when we have
Okay.
an and we see, I'm just using this as an example, right? We have
Mhm.
an and we have young people that want we see that drive in them. We should take them under the wing. Not necessarily to say that we're going to dictate to you how you develop your leadership skills, but we're here to support you. We're here to provide guidance. We're here to just allow you to be able to grow in a safe space, to make mistakes and not be beat over the head, when you make a mistake, because we're human. Yes,
I'd like to add to what you're saying, a confirm, and I for myself, I'm acknowledging it, uh, because from the point of business models, educational models, the socio-cultural kind of tries to be the womb that caters to all of that. And in the midst of it all, when we're tying in our cultural self and the mishaps and wanting to work at creating a value system of self while you're working on being a citizen of a country, those those are two straddling fences, because you don't want to crowd the particular part that you're doing now. The strategic part is very, very necessary. Sometimes it will get interfered with an emotionalism that comes into the and wants to and we have to strategically know how to wing that over to another category, another arena, another time, and deal with it, and still keep the value of that individual or those emotions in check.
yes, ma'am.
So that's a tightrope kind of experience.
Yes, ma'am. And that's what the visioning session was designed to do that conflict resolution part of this work, to address it head on at the beginning before we start to get into a lot of the specifics of what is going to be required, right? Because a lot of times we want to jump in from idea to doing it without going through those necessary steps, knowing the history of our community. We have a lot of boogeyman's, we have a lot of baggage that we're carrying, and we have to deal with that up front. That's not just the masjid. Masjid is just a microcosm of the broader community. When we're dealing with communities, we see this, right? And a lot of times before we even start the necessary work with communities, our firm, we always have what we call a tour of the community, right? We walk with the community to learn more about the challenges that they want to address. And we come back for a debriefing. And that debriefing allows the community what we term allows the community just to dump, because they have a lot of challenges. They are dealing with a lot. So in order for you to move past the baggage that is in the room, we have to have those conversations. We have to allow them to be able to do that dumping. And a lot of times when I'm talking with my colleagues, other city, representatives, I tell them all the time, you can come there with your agenda, saying that you're gonna stick to this topic, and you only want to talk about this. They're gonna bring up other things. So you're gonna have to make space, right, at the very beginning of the meeting, to have that kind of dumping session. We don't call it a dumping session, but we allow that space for them to air their concerns with whatever entity is before them, right? And being able to, and although we may be the city or we may be a state entity that is in front of the community, we recognize that they have other issues and concerns, right? So we gather that and we say, this is beyond our jurisdiction or our frame, that, our scope of work for what we're doing here today. But we will take your concerns to whatever entity, and we will bring back that result to you. That is so important. You can't just acknowledge the concern, but you also have to elevate it to whatever you need to elevate it, and then bring back what the community needs to do. That is, again, how you build trust. So this visioning session that we talked about last week was to do exactly that, Sister Martha, to identify those hopes, those dreams, those aspirations, and any concerns, right? Concerns that an individual or group may have around what will prevent us from realizing these dreams. And then a strategy in how we're going to deal with those hurdles. And then when they come up, right, we mentioned to them, remember our visioning session, and this came up. This is how we're going to deal with that challenge. And we all agreed that this is how we were going to proceed, right? And that usually, I usually find that people are able to accept, right? Because they participated in it. Their thoughts and ideas were heard. The concern was heard. This is the strategy we have decided that was going to address your concern, right? But again, that baggage that we bring, that emotionalism that we bring to this work, those concerns are always going to rear their heads. But we have already thought through a strategy in which we were going to deal with. So, Sister Martha, I mean that was right on with what you were describing.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you so very, very much. And if there aren't any questions or comments, we just want everyone to know today is the day before tomorrow. It is tomorrow in this country. We're nationally recognized as Thanksgiving. However you connect with that, alhamdulillah, AM 360 will still be live and running with those who are in support of the hosts that come on. Tonight at 5 p.m. will be Halal Industries, Do for Self. Imam Wali Ayub Bilal and the team, Sherry Bilal, his wife, uh, Hassan, Hassan Muhammad, I want to say Muhammad, uh, but James Bashir, Nate Mohammed, and Brian Ali. That's 5 to 7. And then 7 to 9 is our CEO of AM 360, is Khalida Akbar with Narrative Aspirations. And we know today will be the last Wednesday that we will be doing our strategic planning outward, but we will continue to work CWSC on its strategic planning process, informing, uh, what do you call it, identifying first and informing and investigating and then implementing. So we're going through this process. We're going to use what Imam left, and thank Allah for Omar Muhammad for coming forward and taking on this task to walk us through it in a strategic process so that we can be beneficiaries of it. I like to point out that he also received training through paid for training, but it was beyond what the dollars could call for. But could you please share a little bit about that, if you don't mind? Islamic Leadership Development Training Program.
Yes, ma'am. Islamic Leadership Development Training Program. And thank you, Sister Martha, for lifting that up in this conversation as well. Actually, they are recruiting now for a new cohort. It is a fee-based service, but it's minimum. And for me, the fee that they charged is definitely well worth it. It is almost in my opinion, it is graduate level information and topics that you cover. But we cover the language of Imam Warith Deen Mohammed. We cover the life example of Prophet Muhammad, and we cover Islamic studies. That is what the ILDTP program covers. And it is an extremely valuable program, I have found. Again, they are recruiting. And Sister Martha, I'd be glad to share with you the information. They have an informational session that is coming up. I'd be glad to share that link with you so that you can share it broadly with the CWSC network, so that if anyone that is interested in applying for the program can apply. They do have a scholarship. I'm not aware that the scholarship covers the full tuition. It is a 2-year program, but they do have a scholarship that they can award to needy students. And they're taking all ages of students to participate in this program.
Alhamdulillah. And I know there's a payment plan.
It is a
process
commitment.
for that. And that's they are part. They connect with a time to be grateful to coordinate that the recipients. I should say the students, the graduates. So everyone, this is a nucleus expression of what we can become as educators and taking charge of institutional education from Sister Clara Muhammad schools all the way to this process of Islamic Leadership Development Training Program. At the same time, this is part of CWSC's process. Is the group intellect. That's what I wanted to point out. Omar, group intellect is very, very much centered and focused on how you can work as a team participant with the other intellect. So praise be to Allah. Today from 1 to 5, we'll be here with carrying out more of the strategic planning process for anyone who wants to be engaged. You can go to CW to American Muslim 360 daily broadcast, and you can see the previous shared Wednesday, Thursday, starting the first week of November. We started, and to today and tomorrow. Tomorrow will be from 2 to 6. So, what we're asking everyone to do is truly zoom in on what you are about and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed you with your gifts and proceed. Register with CWSC by going to cwsc.us and click on join CWSC and register if you don't have time to participate in any of the components of CWSC. Otherwise, click on MCNRD and register. All right. Alhamdulillah. Thank you again, ma'am. Can't thank and your family. Our prayers are with you and your family always. And thank your wife for allowing the space for you to deliver this. Alhamdulillah. We look forward to next week, inshallah. Any comments you want to share now?
Sister Martha, thank you so much for the kind words, and I just want to just close the session out with Assalamu alaikum. And again, if you need any assistance with anything that we discuss on this podcast, please reach out to Sister Martha or CWSC, and she knows how to get in contact with me. I'll be glad to sit down with anyone and help in any way that I can.
Alhamdulillah. All right. With that, everyone, I'm going to be flashing some uh, public service announcements by way of advertisements. That's with BC, Al Maun, excuse me. There's an organization, not for profit, out from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. They on November 30th, they'll be doing a first time annual food giveaway. And along with that, on November 30th, 29th, 28th, 29th, 30th, Imam Tariq Abdul Mukman and Khalida Akbar will be presenting here on American Muslim 360 from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And they will be presenting for Blessed for Sustainable uh, Societies. I'm forgetting the B here. Uh, but it'll be on vows and entrepreneurship as well. So please plan to connect with us. That's Friday, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. and Saturday, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. and Sunday, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also on the 30th, we'll begin CWSCM 360's end of the year telethon. Come penny, come nickel, come dime, come quarter, dollars, please come share. End of the year telethon for CWSC AM 360 right here on American Muslim 360 daily broadcast. Please share with everyone. We appreciate you, and we can only express it in the way that we convey to you through this broadcast, as well as connecting with organizations that are delivering products to our system of being a cultural family system throughout this country. And so CWSC used the words 50 states, 50 years ahead, 50 states strong. With that, assalamu alaikum. Oh, and don't forget A Time to Be Grateful and Muslim Journal. Yes, please subscribe to Muslim Journal. And please plan to attend and be a part of A Time to Be Grateful, a fundraising event or effort for Muslim Journal. And that is December 11th through December 14th, 2025. All right. And there are many organizations throughout the country that's aligned with our mission and our vision, remake the world into a better place. That's whom we're looking forward to connect with. And that's whether you're Muslim, Christian, Judaic, Baha'i, or being universal human. Assalamu alaikum.